Shabbat Shalom everyone and welcome to Science Lab. The signs are happening because Lord Jesus Christ is coming.
Every day we are looking at some of the signs that are happening around us. In this episode, we are going to see the signs in Israel.
First ever Israeli commercial airline lands in UAE. The peace deal facilitates cooperation between Israel and the Gulf states. But will it last?
The first ever direct flight from Israel to the United Arab Emirates by an Israeli commercial airline took place the morning of August 31, 2020. The LAI aircraft took off at 11:30 a.m. and landed just over 3 hours after carrying a host of Israeli and American delegates.
The American delegation included White House Presidential Advisor Jared Kushner, United States National Security Advisor Robert O'Brien, U.S. Special Representative for International Negotiations Avi Berkowitz, and U.S.-Iran envoy Baron Hook.
This flight is a part of the peace deal made between 2 weeks ago after Israel and the UAE, in a phone call with United States President Donald Trump, agreed to full normalization of relations. This is the first peace treaty between Israel and an Arab country in 25 years.
Kushner said this is a very hopeful time, and I believe that so much peace and prosperity is possible in this region and around the world. I prayed at the Western Wall that Muslims and Arabs from throughout the world will be watching this flight, recognizing that we are all children of God and that the future does not have to be predetermined by the past. Shortly before boarding, O'Brien thanked Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, UAE Crown Prince Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan, and US President Trump for courageously taking a risk for peace. Pilot Tal Bekkar told those assembled, for the very first time, an Israeli registered aircraft will fly over Saudi Arabia and, after a non-stop flight from Israel, land in the United Arab Emirates. The duration of the flight with a shortened route over Saudi Arabia will be approximately 3 hours and 20 minutes, instead of what would have been more than 7 hours up to now. This would be another significant event in our history, just as LI was there when peace was signed between Jerusalem, Cairo, and Amman, wishing us all salam, peace, and shalom. Before boarding, Ben Shabbat said that Israel's goal for trip is to reach a joint work plan to promote ties in a broad range of areas, including tourism, innovation, health, and more. The peace agreement includes establishing embassies and exchanging ambassadors, investments into Israel's economy, trade, direct flights between Tel Aviv and Abu Dhabi, investments in Israeli efforts to develop a coronavirus vaccine, and cooperation in matters of energy and water. Upon landing in the UAE, Ben Shabbat and his Emirati counterpart Sheikh Tahnoun bin Zayed had a lengthy meeting. Israeli and UAE officials also met for roundtable discussions of possible opportunities for cooperation, often with an American facilitator. One UAE diplomat said she expects many locals to visit Israel when there are regular flights between the countries. Many have expressed interest in seeing Jerusalem. Netanyahu, in a press conference in Jerusalem, said peace with the United Arab Emirates will be a warm peace. He also commented on his feeling of immense pride, stating this is a new age in our history. He invited the UAE delegation to Israel to be welcomed on red carpet as well. Many of the officials also commented on the possibility of new relationships opening up with other Arab countries. Kushner said that the fight was a manifestation of what is possible in the Middle East. We can take it as a sign, it's an encouragement for this progress. O'Brien expressed his hopes that this will lead to other nations deciding it is in their best interest to normalize ties with Israel. Suggesting Israel is in talks with other Arab states, Netanyahu said, "There are many things I cannot tell you, but I'm sure you will find out in time." Kushner criticized the Palestinians for rejecting the Trump peace plan. On the tarmac in Abu Dhabi, Kushner said of the Palestinians, "When they are ready, the whole region wants to move forward, but they can't be stuck in the past. Peace and opportunity will be ready for them as soon as they are ready to embrace it." But there is a great danger in warming ties between Israel and Arab states, a quickly forming alliance between Arab states that are not aligned with Iran. This prophecy is found in Psalm 83. Israel currently finds itself as a part of the security partnership and the warming ties that come with it. However, as that prophecy details, this anti-Iranian alliance will not always be so friendly to the Jewish state of Israel.
So far, we were seeing about the signs happening in Israel. After seeing all these things, we definitely need a break. Don't go anywhere, we'll meet you after a short break. Welcome back to Science Lab. The signs are happening because Lord Jesus Christ is coming. Before the break, we were seeing about the signs happening in Israel, and let's continue. Will the Trump's peace deal bring Hamas and Fatah together? Relationship between Israel and the Gulf Arabs are warming to the ire of the Palestinians.
Bahrain and Israel have agreed to establish diplomatic relations in another peace deal brokered by United States President Donald Trump on September 11. The agreement reached a month after another landmark deal between Israel and the United Arab Emirates is the latest example of Israel reaching out to the Muslim world.
These deals are huge for Israel, bringing recognition from Arab countries after decades of waiting, but they will also have a huge impact on the Palestinians.
In previous years, many Arab states have said that the precondition for diplomatic relations was for Israel to withdraw from the West Bank and Gaza and recognize an independent state of Palestine. Even the Arab states not involved in these new deals have been broadly supportive of them. Egyptian President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi tweeted his support of the new Bahrain deal, stating that it would bring stability and peace in the Middle East. Egypt is one of our 4 Arab states to recognize Israel's existence. The Sultanate of Oman does not. Yet this didn't stop the national broadcaster from stating that the Sultanate welcomes the initiative taken by sisterly Kingdom of Bahrain. Even in the Arab League, an international organization of Arab states based in Cairo, doesn't seem to be overtly hostile to the idea of its members stating establishing relations with Israel. Early in September, a Palestinian delegation submitted a draft proposal to the League condemning the Israel-UAE deal. Despite the fact that the majority of the Arab League's member states don't recognize Israel's legitimacy as a country, the proposal failed to get off the ground. Now, that pressure from Arab world is gone, and the Palestinians are seeing themselves as friendless. Palestinian politician Mohammed Ishtaye, after the debacle with the Arab League, stated, "The Arab League has become a symbol of the Arab inaction." West Bank Social Affairs Minister Ahmed Majdalani called the agreement a stab in the back of the Palestinian cause and the Palestinian people. But the big prize for Israel would be Saudi Arabia. While Riyadh has made no indication at this point that it's ready to establish diplomatic relations with Israel, a number of signs suggest that relations between Riyadh and Jerusalem are warming. Bahrain is a close ally of Saudi Arabia, and many analysts state that Bahrain would have never established diplomatic relations without first consulting its Saudi friends. Mark Schneier, who has acted as an advisor to the Bahraini monarchy, stated, "The Bahrain government has been very respectful of the Saudi position throughout this process. Saudi Arabia, the largest Arab country, bailed out Bahrain during a financial crisis in 2018 and sent troops there to quell an uprising during the 2011 Arab Spring. Saudi Arabia also recently gave its consent for Israeli flights to use its airspace. Some Middle Eastern nations are less positive about the agreement. Jordan and Turkey are among them. However, both already have diplomatic relations with Israel and have not indicated that they are planning on changing that. So the Palestinians are left almost alone. Without the traditional backing of the Arab states, where will the Palestinians turn to for support? One answer is each other. The Israel-Bahrain deal seems to be one of the few things that can bring the rival political factions Fatah and Hamas together. On September 12, various Palestinian factions, including Fatah and Hamas, agreed unified field leadership for popular resistance. In response to the agreement, Hamas Politburo member Hussam Badran said that the meeting was a major step of progress. For years now, Palestinian leaders have been squabbling with each other, almost more than with Israel. If they form a united front, this could change very quickly. Hamas, a terrorist group based primarily in the Gaza Strip and considered one of the more violent Palestinian factions, has so far been unable to develop a strong base in the West Bank as it would like. Fatah strongman Mohammed Abbas, while not a friend to Israel, has been mostly successful in keeping Hamas out of Palestinian Authority politics. Fatah and Hamas have spent years divided, yet now they are closer than ever to unity. But why is this so important? We have been watching the rise of Hamas in the West Bank for years. Giving that to the West Bank borders to East Jerusalem, it is likely that the fall of half of the city is preceded by the West Bank coming under Palestinian control, especially that of more violent Hamas faction. The Arabs of the Fatah party currently control the Western Bank. However, Hamas terrorists and weapons are present throughout the Western Bank, and there is a little doubt that they are working toward getting control of the strategic region of Israel. Hamas sponsor Iran's ultimate goal is to overrun Jerusalem. The West Bank adjoins the city.
Notice the reference to half of the city going into captivity. The Palestinians have long desired to have the eastern half of the Jerusalem for themselves. They have sought support from the international community to pressure Israel to accept a two-state solution. But with the fellow Arabs turning against them, Palestinians might feel the need to take matters into their own hands. And Zechariah 14 implies a violent takeover.
Israel's normalization of relationship with the Arab world may have been the impetus needed for the Palestinians to finally unite and begin planning such a takeover. Most wars between the Israelis and the Palestinians have been localized conflicts. However, the seizure of Jerusalem will unleash a domino effect of conflict that will engulf the entire world.
Israel is a timepiece we should watch out for in this last days. All the incidents that are happening in and around Israel will show us that what time we are living in. All this shows that we are living in the last days. Lord Jesus Christ is coming again very soon. Thank you for watching this episode. Don't forget to tune into Science Lab next time.
Now we would like to end the program by asking you a question. How many Arab countries recognize the existence of Israel? Option A, 2 countries. Option B, 3 countries. And option C, 4 countries.
Send us the right answer to sciencelab@angeltv.org. If you have missed any of the episodes, do not worry, you can watch it again and again in our Science Lab YouTube page, but don't forget to like, share and comment on the video.
Also, ask your friends and relatives to watch the Science Lab so that they will know that we are living in the last days. Remember, signs are happening because Lord Jesus Christ is coming.
Maranatha.